How's it going, everybody? ChaoticMeatball here, and welcome back to the Blue Kaizo Elite Four challenge. So, in the comments of my last Blue Kaizo video, I asked you guys what type you wanted me to try out next, and I had a ton of requests for me to specifically get Ghost, Dragon, and Fighting. And yes, I do highly agree that these are going to be the hardest types. So let's go ahead and just get into one of the most difficult types we're going to have to deal with in this series, and that's the Ghost type. See, the only Ghost types in the game are Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar. So yeah, we only have a single evolution line to work with. Now, I could go for 6 Gengars, they all can learn Explosion, so I could easily just gain a 6-5 lead, then explode on the last 5 Pokemon and pick up the scraps from there, but that wouldn't be fun if I immediately went for it. So instead, I decided to go for 3 Gengars and 3 Haunters to give myself even more of a challenge. Ghastly's just too weak for me to do anything with. I've tried, it does not work. Not to mention, the only Ghost-type damaging move available is Lick, a 30 power move with the chance of paralysis. Yeah, I know, Nightshade exists, but it's a set damage move like Seismic Toss. Also, not to mention, this line does not seem to get Lick. I don't know why, but in Blue Kaizo, the Ghastly line does not learn Lick. Whatever. At least they get a bunch of other moves, so I should be fine, especially with a base 130 special and base 110 speed on the part of Gengar. Anyway, let's get into the movesets. So, our 3 Gengars are all going to know Explosion, Psychic, and Hyper Beam as they get these moves by level up and infinitely obtainable TMs in the form of Hyper Beam. So I figured I'd try a variety of special attacks to take advantage of that huge special available to me. Stuff like Ice Beam, Solar Beam, Fire Blast, but guess what? Nope, they don't learn them. Shockingly, the only 3 TMs I have access to for super strong special attacks that they can learn are Thunderbolt, Thunder, and Mega Drain, the latter of which I would not call super strong since it's much weaker than Psychic, but at least useful for draining HP and surviving attacks for Explosion. This at least gives me enough for each one of my Gengars, but what are my Haunters gonna do? Well, they're all relatively uniform as well, seeing as all 3 know Psychic, Nightshade, and Confuse Ray. Confuse Ray really isn't useful in the slightest, though I do discover later on that it is, as our opponents have infinite full heals, but I have nothing to fill these slots with, so I can't help it. However, the 4th move is going to be filled by the TMs for Self-Destruct and Explosion for the first 2, so I'm able to give 2 of them these moves, but the 3rd is stuck with Hypnosis, giving it 2 useless moves, though I'm hoping that Psychic and Nightshade may be able to eke out wins occasionally. With that though, that's all to be said. Time to see how well the Gengar line can take down Blue Kaizo. So, the first fight against Lorelai starts out relatively poorly. Working with 6 of the same evolution line really limits what I can do. But my first strategy was to start off with my Gengar that knew Mega Drain, taking out Cloyster with 3 of them, only getting hit with a single Blizzard, before Nidoqueen was sent out next. Gengar outspeeds, nailing a Psychic before getting hit with a massive Earthquake. This move is the bane of my existence throughout this entire challenge, as it usually KOs everything I have. But since all of my Pokemon outspeed, I went into my Haunter with Hypnosis, using Psychic to finish off Nidoqueen, leading to Vaporeon out third. Psychic does nearly nothing, taking a huge Hydro Pump, so I change over to Nightshade, hitting 2 of those through a Sand Attack before getting finished off by a second Hydro Pump. I'm back down to a 4-4 tie, so I go into my Gengar with Thunderbolt, taking the Revenge KO on Vaporeon and giving me the advantage 4-3 once again. Next out is Jinx, and she's probably the most threatening Pokemon on her team for now. So I go for Thunderbolt, only doing about a third before going down to Psychic, so I go into my last Gengar with Thunder, missing it and going down to 31 HP, so I just sacked off with Explosion, going down to a 2-2 tie on Double Down. Both of mine are just not fully evolved though, so Lapras takes me down, and I clearly need to hold my Gengars and take advantage of what my Haunters can do early game. First of all though, I swapped my Gengar with Mega Drain for the one with Thunder before the second attempt, so that I could take out Cloyster with no damage with Thunder, once again leading to Nidoqueen. Psychic does over half as Earthquake KOs from full, not shocking at all, so that one didn't end up working as well. My Haunter with Explosion comes into KO with Psychic, getting to Vaporeon once again. I went straight for Nightshade, doing 100 damage as Haunter gets hit with Blizzard, going down to another next turn as I go into my Gengar with Thunderbolt, barely not finishing Vaporeon off before getting KO'd with Hydro Pump. Yeah, that attempt ain't gonna do it. I spent a few more attempts until I got relatively lucky, getting to the point with my Gengar with Thunder where I one-shot Cloyster with Thunder, Nidoqueen with a critical Psychic, and took out Vaporeon with a Thunder and Explosion, putting me at a relatively large 5-3 advantage. I went into my Gengar with Explosion, immediately going for it on her Jinx, but it goes down in vain, so I throw out my Gengar with Thunderbolt, landing it as it takes Psychic, barely hanging on as I go for Explosion, KOing, and leaving me ahead 3-2 against her Lapras and Vaporeon. I went for Nightshade, outspeeding and getting hit with Surf afterwards, taking a little under half as I go for Nightshade once again, taking Surf once more, but of course I'm hit with a crit instead of being able to go for Self-Destruct, so there goes that Haunter. So I go into my last Gengar, hitting a Mega Drain for a wee bit before getting hit with Blizzard for around half, hitting a Hyper Beam before realizing that I couldn't KO, but getting very lucky since even though she lands a Thunderbolt, she misses the next attack as I'm able to hit one more Hyper Beam, leaving just Articuno. I outspeed and land Explosion, doing about half, leaving just Haunter on my side. So I go for Nightshade, doing a fourth before Sky Attack lands, and KO's my last Haunter. I was so close there, a 5-3 lead was blown, but I think I can get it the next try. I should have this. Thunder KO's Cloyster, Psychic is a critical on Nidoqueen once again, that's lucky, KOing and leading to Vaporeon, so instead here I go for 2 Thunders, taking a Hydro Pump before pulling off the 6-3 lead. Jinx is out next, and this Gengar outspeeds, one-shotting with Explosion and keeping up the 3 Pokemon lead as Lapras comes in. So I swap for my Gengar with Thunderbolt, getting a crit for around 80% before getting hit with a critical Surf, barely surviving as I hit one more, leaving just Articuno. This Gengar is able to outspeed again, using Explosion and getting a critical, leaving Articuno at red HP, before I go into my last Gengar, using Explosion once more to win the fight with a 3-0 victory. Alright, well, I don't like needing that much luck for the first fight, but I should be alright up until Lance. Professor Oak time, and he's not going down without a challenge. Pun entirely intended, as he leads with Raichu, so I go for my Gengar with Mega Drain, using Psychic for a wee bit under half as I take a Thunderbolt, taking it out with a critical Hyper Beam as he sends in Machamp. Not his best idea, but Psychic is able to do around 65% damage as Earthquake KOs from full, so I go into another Gengar to finish it off, with Chansey coming out third. Psychic does next to nothing, but I am whittling it down and lowering its special, eventually taking it out after 7 uses of Psychic, living on 62 HP before Charizard comes out fourth. Thunderbolt does a good chunk of damage, doing around 70% as Earthquake KOs Gengar number 2, so I went for one of my Haunters. But of course it doesn't outspeed, so it goes down without a fight. I go into a second Haunter and the same repeats itself. Well, I guess I don't want to use the other one, since I do want to have material to sack off my last Gengar with Explosion, so I do go into the last Gengar, using Thunder to KO and lead to Venusaur. Psychic's an easy 2-shot as it's immune to Body Slam, and for some reason Venusaur decides to go for that, leaving just Blastoise. Thunder does a massive amount of damage, nearly KOing as Earthquake brings Gengar down to 8 HP, so I went for Psychic, finishing the battle with a 2-0 victory. Alright, well, I'll take a first try victory after how many times I had to attempt Lorelai. Let's just hope that Agatha ends up being just as pleasant. Agatha's actually not too bad this go-around. She leads with Hypno, barely taking any damage from Mega Drain as she goes with Psychic for massive damage, but Explosion is able to finish it off, putting me tied 5-5 on the double down. Executor's up next, and I really have nothing to take this thing on with, since none of my poison types have poison moves. But Gengar number 2 is able to land a Thunderbolt for minimal damage, even with a crit, surviving Psychic as I try Explosion again, but it doesn't finish it off sadly. So I go for a Haunter to Nightshade, outspeeding and putting me back at a 4-4 tie. Tentacruel's out third, and Blizzard does quite the number on my first Haunter, doing half as Psychic does half to Tentacruel. But then she decides to go for Wrap on a Ghost type. But it keeps going! Ah yes, Gen 1 is a very glitchy mess with every problem in existence. Luckily though for me, Haunter doesn't actually get residually quote-unquote damaged by Wrap, So I just waited it out, taking another blizzard and surviving just barely on 10 HP before firing off a self-destruct, barely not taking out Tentacruel, so my Gengar with Thunder was at my follow-up, taking it out with Psychic and leading to Jinx. Oh geez, I just realized again that switch mode is on, but I'm not switching out since I know my rules, I'm just bad at turning this off. With that said, Jinx gets hit with Thunder as she fires back with Blizzard, doing over half as I decide to go for Hyper Beam, KOing with a critical hit before her own Gengar comes out. Luckily, my Gengar is able to outspeed and land Psychic for a wee bit over half, but since it's level 115, Nightshade is in KO range unlike how it would be normally, taking out my Gengar, leaving me with just 2 more Haunters. Her Gengar is able to outspeed one of mine, hitting Psychic and barely not one-shotting, lowering Haunter's special, but I am able to fire back with another Psychic of my own, still KOing and leaving me at a 2-1 advantage against her Alakazam. Fortunately, she's an idiot and goes for Recover at full HP, allowing my low HP Haunter to fire off an explosion, winning me the battle after a one-shot. I was expecting to lose that one, but due to a dumb error on my part of the opponent, I'm able to come out on top once again. I sincerely don't like winning by luck this much though, usually I'll take it on occasion, but oh lord, this is starting to get hard. But I'm sure my third and last Haunter probably would have been able to follow up there, so I probably don't need to be complaining about it. With that though, 2 more battles. This is where I was brought to a screeching halt though. See, Lance has one big problem, that being Aerodactyl. This Pokemon outspeeds my entire team and has enough attack to KO all of my Haunters and Gengars with Earthquake. I was very close to giving up here, but somehow I got a lucky run where I managed to get a 1 in 256 glitch where Earthquake managed to miss, allowing me to take it out. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I failed a good number of times, as Kangaskhan's Earthquake and Electabuzz's Psychic really threw me off and took out quite a number of my Pokemon, not to mention Snorlax's Earthquake. Fortunately, on my first attempt, I did manage to get to Aerodactyl. The second attempt, I managed to get Kangaskhan a bit more consistent though, only losing a single Gengar and making 1-for-1 trades until I gained a 3-2 lead by taking out both Electabuzz and Dragonite with my second Gengar. The most shocking thing I think that came out of this attempt though was that Confuse Ray is not a useless move. As I alluded to before in the team building section of this video, turns out the trainers don't actually use full heals when they're confused as opposed to burn, freeze, sleep, poison, or paralysis. Kind of funny really, it helps a ton for both this fight and the champion fight, but that still doesn't solve the problem of Aerodactyl outspeeding and KOing my entire team. The third and final attempt managed to be the one where the 1 in 256 glitch activated, which was quite the lucky thing to happen, because I'm sure you can tell 1 in 256 is a pretty low chance, but let's get into the battle itself. Lance leads with Kangaskhan as I go for Haunter, confusing it as it hits itself. So I go for Psychic, doing a bit as well as lowering his special as he hits himself again, getting him down to half HP. A second Psychic does plenty enough for a third Confusion hit to knock out Kangaskhan, putting me up 6-5 with a Haunter of all things. Wish I had realized the use of Confusion sooner, but out comes Lapras as I confuse it, getting it with Thunderbolt through it for about a fourth as I start trading with Psychic, lowering his special as Confusion misses the hit again, letting him land another Thunderbolt. Confusion really doesn't do anything to Lapras here, but I am able to get it down to half before firing off Self-Destruct, barely not KOing it as Gengar with Thunderbolt is able to pick up the Revenge KO, bringing me back to a 5-4 lead. Next out is Electabuzz, so we start to trade Psychics. Gengar is better though, as it lowers Electabuzz's special on the first Psychic, allowing me to pump 2 more into Electabuzz to KO, leading to Dragonite. This gives me perfect HP to survive a Blizzard, letting Gengar fire off an explosion, barely missing the KO on Dragonite, so my third Gengar is able to come in and follow up with Hyper Beam, finishing it off and leading to Snorlax. There's not really much I can do against this thing aside from click Psychic, since Earthquake is just going to take out Gengar, letting one of my Haunters come in and confuse it. Fortunately, another one of Gen 1's quirks comes in handy here, as Nightshade is able to hit normal types despite being a ghost type move, which in turn lets my Haunter get by Snorlax unscathed, giving me 3 Pokemon to fight against Aerodactyl with. As I've said before, the 1 in 256 glitch helps me here, but I do try to confuse it with Haunter, going down Earthquake as I send in my last Gengar, going for Thunder as Earthquake misses, giving me the one-shot KO and winning the fight. Alright, well that is a breath of fresh air achieved. I didn't realize that Lance was going to give me such a fight at this point in time, but that's nothing in comparison to the champion fight. So I'm sure you guys remembered, if you've watched the other videos in this series, that the rival has both Mew and Mewtwo in this fight, which is plenty enough to put a hurting on my team as it is because they're all Ghost and Poison types, but that's not it. Sadly though, Tauros is on his team as well, and this is the same problem as I had with Lance's Aerodactyl, but worse. It has Earthquake, again 100% accurate move that can only miss due to the 1 in 256 glitch, and sadly I have no way of one-shotting this. I'd essentially have to get lucky, get said glitch to happen, and land Confuse Ray with one of my Haunters out, making it hit itself next turn as I go for Explosion or Self-Destruct and hope it KOs, and it most likely won't, so then I would have to go for another Pokemon, probably having to sack it off as well, or go for my Gengar with Thunder, and pray that I hit that in order to take it out, but that's not even taking into consideration the other Pokemon on his team before or after said Tauros, as I already have to contend with Mew, Jolteon, Exeggutor, and Starmie before I get to Tauros, meaning Mewtwo is right after, and it's just pain. So sadly, this is the one of the types that I failed. Now, I don't like failing challenges, but here it's kind of warranted because I'm looking over the movesets. Gengar, Haunter, Ghastly can't get any accuracy deprivation moves here in Blue Kaizo. They can't do really much of anything. I've even tried messing with the save file to give them max speed DVs and also give myself 6 Gengars. And I'm still in the same boat. Even after finishing the footage for this challenge initially, I really did mess with the save file and went ahead and gave everybody max speed DVs, and the challenge is still unbeatable without a 1 in 256 glitch and lucky confusion. So again, I consider this a failure. But we can learn from this. After all, now I know that the confusion status is actually a very helpful friend in this challenge. Not to mention that Gengar and possibly even Haunter are able to do the trick over in the Poison type challenge once we get to that, if things like Arbok, Golbat, and Venomoth aren't doing the trick. Anyway, with all that said, I hate to end this video on a low note, so I'll go ahead and let you know that my next video will be seeing if I can complete Pokemon Red and Blue using a single Bidoof. You heard that right, Bidoof. But hey, I can pull stuff out of my bum and beat a game with Blue Eyes White Dragon. You guys don't doubt me, right? Well, tune in on Sunday to find out. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, click the bell, tell a friend, and don't spend more than a minute doing that, since if you are, you're taking too long. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this, and I'll see you guys next time with another challenge. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.